Salutations, one and all, and welcome to RWBY Revisited. In this installment, let's look at Cinder's confrontation with Rhodes, along with what led up to it, and why it went the way that it did. As per usual, let's break down the motivations of both parties in this confrontation. In this case, neither party is in the right here. If you've noticed, I use different colored text to indicate the alignment of the combatants in fight analysis videos. Red is for heroes, protagonists, or in general, characters that we should be rooting for. Blue text is for villains, antagonists, or other sides that we should typically be opposed to, and green text is for third parties that don't fit into either of those designations. For the life of me, I struggled to pick which one to assign to these two. Cinder, while obviously the victim of her abusers, is technically in violation of the law. She did just kill her adoptive mother and siblings, even if they were only so in name. From her dialogue though, she seems to have snapped a bit and gone a little bit insane. Rhodes, on the other hand, if we're being pedantic, is upholding the law, but this scenario can largely be blamed on him. On top of this, he handled the situation incredibly poorly, forcing Cinder into a corner. Most living things, be they human or otherwise, will lash out in defense of their life when they have no other options. So I'm saying, just this once, that Cinder was at least closer to being in the right. Her captors deserved what they got, but let's see why I've determined that. As for the fight itself, Rhodes may be attempting to apprehend Cinder, but given that he immediately went for his weapon, maybe that wasn't the case. Cinder has just ended the lives of her abusers and is now fighting to defend herself and escape the consequences. Personally, I say they deserved it, but that's neither here nor there. But let's take a look at what orchestrated this encounter. So as a young child, it would seem as though Cinder was bullied by the other children. We don't know the circumstances of her life at this point, but it would seem as though she has no parental figures to stand up for her or to teach her. She's seen being made to scrub the floor of a barn alone, indicating that she may have even been abused and belittled by those who were supposed to care for her. She's depicted as fighting back, but given that she's smaller and outnumbered, that doesn't seem to end well for her.
I'll take her.
But we see a woman approaching, and she claims that she'll take her. Pardon? Since when are children bought and sold like this is a car dealership?
Yes, I'd like to adopt the two of them like puppies from a kennel. After all, anything can be bought and sold for the right oil.
A missed opportunity here would have been if Cinder had been a faunus. With how the show depicts them, it would have made more sense and strengthened that concept of the world building. But Cinder is taken to this woman's establishment, called the Glass Unicorn. Given the name, I would associate it with a decidedly less legitimate form of business, but this is a large hotel, with 5 entire floors, sizable for this setting.
You're to make sure the laundry is folded, the dishes are spotless, and the floors are clean enough to eat off of. Now hurry and get to your chores. The floor looks filthy.
But Cinder was acquired not to be taken care of, but to be used for labor, while this woman's presumed daughters only perform the simplest of tasks. Cinder herself must perform the most intense work and is given insufficient food on top of it all. So let me get this straight. This woman decided to purchase a child whom she would need to house and feed, and has her alone perform the duties of maintaining an establishment of this size. Lady, you do realize that a child will be far inferior at doing these tasks than an adult, especially with only one to do the job. Really, even one adult wouldn't realistically be able to do all of this. That's why you have staff, something we don't see in this place. Given the luxurious depiction of this building, it would seem as though this woman has the money to own it. So having sufficient staff should not only be something she could afford, but essential to maintaining it and her source of income as well. For that matter, how was this accomplished before she acquired Cinder? Did some other poor kid just reach the legal age to leave, and thus a replacement was needed? I have many questions about how this place hasn't sunk by now. Cinder is then shown falling and dropping a tray of dishes as her quote-unquote sisters laugh at her. All of this is directly in the lobby of the hotel in front of the patrons. That doesn't exactly make your establishment look good if your child worker is collapsing from overwork and malnourishment while others laugh at it. If I was the parent, then these two would be kissing whatever it is they hold dear goodbye until such a time as I believed that they had changed their ways. This whole matter is witnessed by Rhodes, who seems to be the only customer in this building with functioning ocular organs. But he does nothing here. As is shown in a moment, he seems to be of a high enough standing to influence a crowd. If he felt that this was wrong, it would be a simple matter to call out the obvious abuse and put the woman running this establishment on the spot. Rhodes clearly has money to stay at a place like this, and his influence is shown later, so threatening to make this known would be a serious blow to this woman and likely force some sort of change. For that matter, this is stated to have been in Atlas. Is this legal? If so, that says a great deal about the laws of the kingdom, and even more if it isn't, implying weakness in the government for this to be so blatant and yet no repercussions occur.
I want to see some punishment!
Pretty nice, huh? Would you look at that? Wow.
Cinder is then seen observing Rhodes as he inspects a sword, though given the dialogue later, this may not belong to him. This is an interesting design, bearing some resemblance to a short falchion, with the weight being focused more towards the tip of the blade. This also closely resembles the blades that Cinder would make via her semblance later, though judging from the amazed onlookers, it appears as though these individuals have never beheld a sword, and probably have never done any actual work in their lives. Those reactions possibly influenced Cinder to be even more captivated than she already was. Humans are social creatures, after all.
You missed a spot.
But then these two spoiled children deliberately track mud for Cinder to clean up. And again, you would think that their mother wouldn't want them dirtying up the place, but she seems to be deliberately ignorant. Growing up, my parents and their friends wouldn't have let behavior like this slide. There would be severe discipline, but then that would imply that there was good parenting to be found here. But Cinder is shown activating her semblance, heating up the brush and throwing it, which creates a cloud of steam on the wet floor. This lets us know that she must have her aura unlocked, though when that happened is unknown. Similarly unknown is whether this was intentional. This may have been her first activation of her semblance for all we know. We can't say for certain. Again, Rhodes witnesses this interaction.
Now that wasn't very ladylike, was it? I suggest you remember your place.
And we see firsthand that this woman has the ability to put a shock collar on a child. Hello? Again, if this is legal, then this is heinous. If not, then law enforcement is absent, as it's clear to see that a child has been mistreated in this establishment with the malnourishment.
Someone took my damn sword!
The dialogue that follows in this section is why I stated that the sword shown previously was possibly not property of Rhodes, as that voice does not sound like his. Cinder somehow managed to steal it, and has sequestered herself in the basement, where she seems to live.
That's not yours, is it? I'm not here to hurt you.
Rhodes has gotten in here without her notice, however, and gets her attention, and she hurls the weapon at him. Not exactly a smart move, as now you have no weapon, but she is a child after all.
Except once again, you are between me and my way out. And now, you have no weapon.
How old are you?
10.
And you want to be like us? You want to be a huntress? Then we've got about 7 years.
But Rhodes then takes it upon himself to train Cinder, as when she tells him that she's 10 years old, he informs her that they have 7 years before she can attempt to join a huntsman academy and become a huntress. We then have a montage of years passing as Rhodes trains Cinder by night, with her visibly improving as they go. He's even shown to be teaching her his style of dual-wielding, which I'm obviously biased towards, and Cinder makes use of it many times later in her life. He's even shown presenting her a sword identical to the one she took, though Rhodes is in possession of the previous one. Maybe it was his, and his voice just sounded nothing like what it does in every other instance.
Mom, come quick! We found something! It's Cinder! She has a weapon!
But eventually, these little heathens discover the weapon and prompt their mother to investigate. For some reason, the hotel is now deserted, whereas it was previously heavily occupied. Perhaps this is because of the hour, as it is almost midnight, but it's still a tad odd.
Hello? Anyone?
Rhodes does make an appearance, and rushes off when he hears a crash.
You're right. Without you, I am nothing.
In the basement, Cinder has ended the lives of her captors, shown to resist the effects of the collar. Really, these three deserved it. They even got off easy. Look at them. There's no blood or marks of a blade having been used on them at all. The mother is also lucky that her neck didn't break upon being lifted, given that her entire body weight is being supported by only her neck. That could easily snap if done wrong. Or right, depending on how you look at it.
I don't want to have to run now.
That's all you'll ever do.
Rhodes then draws his maces, prompting Cinder to defend herself. Gee, I wonder how this could have happened. When a child is being abused, and you then train the child in combat, it's no wonder that she would use this knowledge to stop further abuse. If only someone could have foreseen such an inconceivable turn of events.
Oh, wait! I did!
Rhodes flourishes his maces, and the flanges extend, though this would do little for melee, as they already extend far enough from the head of the weapon to fulfill their purpose. But it does allow the gun barrels to come into play. You could dual-wield maces, but that doesn't give you the flexibility that swords do. You see, a mace has a great deal of offensive potential, dealing massive damage to bone and tissue, but given that the weight is on the end of the weapon, you can't maneuver it efficiently enough to block or parry quickly, like you could with most designs of sword or dagger, which have the weight closer to your hand. That's the trade-off. A sword won't have the same wallop as a mace or axe, but it's much nimbler. I know this is rich coming from me, as I have dual flails in my avatar, but that was mostly because I find that they are criminally underrated. Cinder moves first, like a cornered animal, and does a very obvious leaping attack at Rhodes. This telegraph is insane, and it is easily blocked, though Rhodes does the X block that most media tends to have dual-wielding characters do, which is a waste. You do not need both weapons to block. Use one while striking with the other. That's why you have two weapons in the first place. Rhodes shakes her off as she tries to kick, then delivers a thrust to her midsection, sending her flying. Cinder then charges again, with another easily anticipated attack, and unless that blade is double-edged, which would be odd for that design, she tried to strike him with the spine of the weapon. Was this an animation oversight? Rhodes then deflects this strike, and her following one, though he leaves himself monstrously exposed here, then tries to attack with both weapons from the same direction at the same time. Good sir, what is the point of having two weapons if you use them as though they were only one? You would be better off with a two-handed weapon for that. Cinder evades this clumsy assault, but is too slow to capitalize, and her next attack is batted aside. Rhodes then winds up both weapons again, allowing Cinder to easily dodge and grapple him. She does attempt to strike him with her blade, but Rhodes blocks this with the shaft of his mace. I would have preferred a sword with a crossguard, but this will have to do. Rhodes activates his semblance to turn part of his skin to metal, functioning as armor, but Cinder counters this with her own, heating it up. This does not stop Rhodes from feeling pain, it would seem, as he cries out at her touch. Cinder doesn't seem to have developed her leg muscles, however, as Rhodes is able to throw her off with one hand, though he seems to have dropped one mace to do so. Her hold should have been much more secure than that. Rhodes fires wildly at Cinder, but the latter has grabbed a bag of flour and uses it as a makeshift smoke grenade, obscuring her movement as she moves behind him, having snatched his blade, and now both are dual-wielding. They both lash out at the same time, though look at where these strikes hit. It's the old movie technique of attacking where the opponent's weapon is instead of the actual opponent. Neither would have made contact here. Rhodes advances on the next strike, but both are swinging wildly here without any notion of defending themselves. Keep your strikes tight so that you don't leave yourself vulnerable. Your weapons and limbs aren't doing anything so far from your body. Rhodes then tries to level his maces to fire at her, but he extends his arms like a chump. At that distance, you don't need to do that. You could hip fire with enough accuracy, and this allows Cinder to force them away from her and kick him away. Given that he has ranged capabilities while you do not, this works in his favor, not yours. Thankfully, she stays on him, breaking his aura in 2 hits. I hope that he had just come back from a mission, because that level of aura is pathetic. What kind of huntsman are you? Cinder seems to think that he'll relent though, as she simply stands there, barely managing to evade the first thrust, then deflect the second before being struck and thrown away, her own aura breaking in the process. It makes sense that hers would not be as developed at this point, as she's only around 14 now, and has no true combat experience. Rhodes has no such excuse. Rhodes then, for whatever reason, slowly approaches her while discarding his weapons, only to be stabbed through the midsection with both blades. Let's see, you initiated combat with a frightened teenager, then approached when you were vulnerable. What exactly was your game plan? But that concludes this fight and Rhodes' life. If that was his best, then he clearly was not a particularly skilled huntsman. Overall, there were some moments that helped show how Cinder came to be, but this sort of thing came far too late, 8 seasons into the show. But what did you think of this sequence? How do you feel this ordeal was handled? What with the rampant abuse of a minor? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Leave a like on this video if you're so inclined, and subscribe to see more. I would like to thank you for watching, and may you all have a weapon in each hand.